Greetings to all. The scripture reading from which this week's point to ponder arises comes from the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 through 28. One of the scripture passages appointed for the 13th Sunday after Pentecost. The passage tells about Jesus' conversation with Peter right after Peter has said he believes Jesus is the Messiah, and Jesus has affirmed Peter for this recognition. In this follow-up conversation, Jesus begins to tell Peter and the disciples what it will mean for him to live into being the Messiah. He tells them that he intends for them to go up with him to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. And he tells them that he does understand that if they do go to Jerusalem at this particular time, he will be arrested and killed. Peter would rather him avoid Jerusalem, especially at this festival time, because it was common knowledge that both the religious and the political authorities saw Jesus as a danger to the established order of things and wanted very much to get rid of him. Peter knows that going to Jerusalem would be dangerous for all of them. So Peter takes Jesus aside and rebukes him for doing something so foolish. Jesus then rebukes Peter for tempting him to take a way out of what he knows he needs to do. And Jesus tells Peter that no matter what happens, going through Jerusalem is the way God intends for him and his followers to go. Then in Matthew's telling of this vignette, Jesus makes the statement from which our point to ponder for this week arises. Jesus says, "Those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it," which suggests a point I have found to be true over and over again in my own life, and in many of the stories that people tell me about their lives. That point is this: sometimes you have to let go to find life. My guest today is my friend, Brenda Mayo. Brenda, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a registered nurse. I retired 5 years ago after practicing for 47 years. I'm from a small town, Dayton, Tennessee, and I came to this area to work with the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And my husband and I, with the children, moved to Cincinnati for 8 years, and then we returned to Knoxville. Right now, I'm just enjoying doing things for charity and the grandchildren.
So as I mentioned in a conversation earlier with you today, the point to ponder for this week is sometimes you have to let go to find life. And I think you have a story to tell. So would you tell your story?
Yeah, well, recognizing that change takes places in all our lives, and then we have a season, and as my daughter always says, friends or associates comes in seasons, and my granddaughter found out this year through a very painful experience about those seasons, but she came through that in a much better place. So some of my letting go experiences have been very personal or even more so job related. Two of my personal experiences, one was with my mother who was on hospice care, and we spent a lot of hours talking, and she talked about letting go. But she wanted to hang on because she just felt like her children, there were 5 of us, just were not in harmony. So I tried to convince her that we were going to be okay. And I knew that she was suffering and she was ready to go. But finally, I think that she found that peace. And I found peace even in the letting go of her physical body, that she felt like that we would be okay. And then the second experience was my best friend of 45 years, who was also in hospice care. And I visited her just about every day and would help care for her. And we would talk, and she would say to me, "Brenda, you have to let go." And that was very hard, because she was my children's godmother. We traveled together. We just did a lot of things together, but she always said to me, "You have to let go." So that I realized that I could not change or fix their circumstances, that what was going to happen with them was going to happen, and that I had to try to obey them and let go and grieve. And that has still been an experience for me, and I'm still letting go. There's not a day goes by that I don't think of both of them. And then my work situation came, a lot of that came because what I did in my current everyday life was due to the past, years ago, getting into nursing school and being the only African American in my class. And there was a lot of rejection. There was a lot of hard days and hard nights. I had professors at the university who would tell me that I could not pass their courses or would not. And it seemed though they would make it as hard for me so that I couldn't pass, but I did. And so when I took the jobs that I had, many of which were either supervisor or management or director's positions, I gave it my all, and I put so much into it that I almost lost myself. But I always knew that the buck stopped here and that somebody was always going to be watching me. So that was a choice I made, just I think so much to say to everybody that I can do this, because I had been told so many times that I couldn't do it. So I made that choice, but in doing so, I gave up time with my family, sometimes canceling vacations or not going on vacations with them. I remember not going to my husband's nephew's wedding because of work, and he and the children went. Or just, it was always something, or not a family movie together, and you know, my children weren't happy about that. But it was because I made the choice to put everything I had into the job. Now, there was a time when finally, in the last few years, as I got older and was thinking about retirement, I wasn't enjoying work, and I was feeling guilty about the time that I spent, but my job required it. And so I decided, well, I'm going to set a date and I'm going to retire. And I went to work every day and did those things that I needed to do, feeling resentful, feeling hurt, feeling angry, feeling used. And there were nights that I would sit and I would write, and that's how I sometimes would deal with the disappointment that I felt. I would journal and write letters and never send them, but at least I could voice my anger or whatever that I had about a situation. So I decided that I'm going to set a date and retire. And I went to work one day and I decided, this is it. So it was nowhere near my date that I had set, because I had goals and I wanted things, I wanted to do things, and I wanted to see things accomplished. But I went in and I turned in my letter of resignation. I called my husband and I said, I've just retired. And it was as if an elephant, and I say this to everybody, an elephant had jumped off my chest. And I felt so free. And even though I knew that I still had 1 month to go, I felt very free in knowing that I was letting go.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is a door that you can look for to be able to let go of the expectations other people have and let that come from inside of yourself, where God puts it in your heart?
I think just believing in me, believing anybody, believing in oneself that, you have given all that you could give, all that you were capable of giving, all that you were taught or skilled to give, and you can't give any more. And I think saying to people, and I have done that in the past, this is your job. I remember being off sick and my assistant was calling. And I said, you have been trained to do this and I'm on sick leave. And that was really one of the first times I had really stood up and I said, I am on sick leave. I am not answering these questions. You have been trained. And that, and I don't know, it may have been the narcotics I was on that helped me do that. But that was a good opening for me to say somebody else has to do it. Everybody has a job and everybody needs to do their own job. And I think that's one of the things that helped me make the decision that I needed to just go ahead and come home, and because I was carrying so much. And so letting go for that was good. I found a passage and I love it. It says, don't let the darkness from your past block the light of joy in your present. What happened is done. Stop giving time to things which no longer exist when there's so much joy to be found here and now.
Thank you, Brenda, for spending this time with me.
You're welcome. Have a good day.